I was never the loudest in the room. Most days, no one even remembered I was in it. But late one night, sitting alone under the glow of a monitor no one else noticed, I found a flaw, one that could change everything. They told me to drop it. I didn't. And that decision? It flipped an entire industry on its head. Most people never looked twice at me. I was the kind of guy you passed in the hallway and maybe nodded at, maybe not. Didn't really matter either way. I'd gotten used to it. I liked sitting in the back of the classroom, of the meeting room of life, I guess. Less pressure. More space to think. I wasn't born brilliant or anything. Just had this itch to figure things out. To understand how things tick. Growing up, I'd pull apart old radios, not to fix them, but just to see what was inside. My dad thought it was weird. My mom said I had a tinkerer's soul. I don't know about all that. I just liked puzzles, especially the ones no one else saw. By the time I was in my late 20s, I was working at this tech company in Chicago. Small-time player in a big industry, data logistics, which sounds boring because, frankly, it is. At least on the surface. But underneath, there's a whole world of gears grinding and wires humming, trying to make sense of the chaos modern business leaves behind. I was part of the support innovation team. That's just a fancy way of saying we cleaned up the messes. Most of my job was spent squinting at spreadsheets, cross-referencing outdated software modules, and trying to smooth out bottlenecks in our back-end systems. My boss, Greg, was the kind of guy who wore cologne so strong you could smell him before you saw him. He liked people who talked big and typed fast. I didn't do either. Carter, he'd say without looking at me, you still working on that metadata patch? Almost there. It's been a week. Still better than the 6 we'd need to fix it manually, I'd mutter. He never heard that part. They didn't see me as an innovator. Just a maintenance man in khakis. But late at night, when the building was quiet and the only light was the green glow of my second monitor, my mind would drift. Not in a lazy way, more like a quiet hum, something alive in the background. I started keeping a notebook. Scribbled thoughts. Sketches. Processes. All these tiny ways I thought we could improve how we moved and stored data. No one asked for them. No one even knew. Until the night I saw it. It was just a glitch at first. An anomaly in a dataset we'd pulled from a partner firm. Something off in the way their info was tagged. But the more I dug, the more I realized it wasn't a bug. It was a pattern. A flaw in how everyone in our field had been handling transactional data. Something so fundamental, so widely accepted that no one questioned it anymore. But it was wrong. And worse, it was wasteful. Billions of dollars wasted annually in the cracks between bad sorting logic and inefficient data storage. And no one had noticed. No one but me. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up mapping the flow, writing a framework to patch it, redesigning how we could track, store, and interpret the same data in half the time and a fraction of the server load. It wasn't fancy. Just clean. Efficient. Like a key that had been waiting for the right lock. By morning I had a prototype. By noon I'd run it through 4 test environments. It worked. Better than I expected. I sat there, staring at the screen, heart racing, sipping stale coffee with shaking hands. This could change everything. And yet, when Greg walked by my desk that day, he didn't even stop. Just muttered, "Keep up," and disappeared down the hall. It didn't matter. Not yet. The world hadn't seen it. But I had. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like just the guy in the back row. The next few days were a blur. I'd become obsessed, which wasn't entirely new for me, but this time it felt different. Like I'd stumbled onto something that didn't just matter to me, but to the whole damn system. The more I tested my model, the more the numbers made sense. Load times dropped. Data integrity improved. Storage costs shrank. It was like I'd built a secret trapdoor in a house everyone thought was sealed shut. Naturally, I told Greg. I wasn't gonna run off and patent the thing behind everyone's back. I just figured if we rolled it out right, it'd make us the go-to company in our sector. Maybe we wouldn't be the biggest, but we'd be the smartest. That had to count for something. I showed up at his office with my laptop under my arm, palms sweaty, heart doing a weird little jazz beat in my chest. "Greg, got a minute?" He barely looked up. "Make it quick." So I did. I kept it tight. Clean. Explained the pattern, the flaw, the patch. Showed him a side-by-side run of our current system and my build. Real-time comparison. Same dataset. My process was faster, cleaner, smaller. Practically idiot-proof. When I was done, he leaned back in his chair and scratched the back of his neck like he'd just listened to someone explain chess in Spanish. "Okay," he said slowly. "But why would we fix something that isn't broken?" I blinked. "Because it is broken. We just didn't see it." He squinted at the screen again, then back at me. "Carter, listen. This company runs on consistency. What you got here, that's experimental. We'd need legal, compliance, and IT to sign off. And you know how slow that gets. Let's not waste cycles on a dead end. Just file the report and move on. He turned back to his inbox like I hadn't just handed him the blueprint for a revolution. I left his office with that weird sick feeling behind my ribs. You know the one, like when you've braced for impact and it never comes. Not disappointment. Something smaller and sharper. Dismissal. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I kept going. Nights, weekends, lunch breaks, I poured everything into refining the system. I cleaned up the architecture, simplified the user interface, added fail-safes for legacy systems. I even built a mock dashboard just to show how smooth it could run. I didn't care about titles or money. I just wanted it to work. To be seen. And the more I worked, the more I realized this wasn't just a company-level fix. This could scale. This could be industry-wide. The inefficiency I'd found wasn't isolated. It was everywhere. Every partner firm, every distributor, every data-hungry machine learning engine was being fed junk because no one ever stopped to ask why we were doing it the way we were. Habit. That's all it was. I started reaching out to a few contacts, some old colleagues, a guy I'd met at a tech meetup in Des Moines, a woman I'd worked with on a freelance contract back in 2020. People who'd seen how the sausage was made. I sent them demos. Walkthroughs. They got it immediately. Holy hell, one of them texted. This is huge. Why aren't people using this already? Good question. Because no one was listening. Not Greg. Not upper management. Not the partners who smiled through quarterly syncs and said things like synergy and value prop while the whole machine wheezed along on outdated thinking. So I made a decision. If no one inside was gonna back it, I'd take it outside. I started a site. Nothing fancy, just a clean landing page with a white paper and a sandbox demo. I didn't use my real name. Just went with Proxy Signal, a nickname I'd used in old forums back in college. I hit publish at 2:11 a.m. on a Thursday. And went to bed hoping maybe, just maybe, somebody out there was listening. 2 days went by. Nothing. The site sat there like a message in a bottle tossed into a digital ocean, bobbing quietly in silence. No hits, no shares, no pings. I kept refreshing the analytics page like a lunatic. 0 visitors. Still 0. Again, 0. I told myself I didn't care. That I'd done it for the right reasons. But the truth? It stung. After all that work, all that late-night pacing and silent coffee-fueled breakdowns in the break room, it felt like the world had shrugged. Then, on the 3rd day, there was a click. Just one. Somebody from an IP address in Austin, Texas. Then another. San Francisco. Then 5. Then 20. Then it was like a match to gasoline. A Reddit thread popped up in a mid-tier developer community. Someone had found the site and dropped the link with the caption, "Is this real? Because if it is, this changes everything." It exploded from there. By the weekend, I had over 60,000 unique visitors. The demo server crashed twice. I had emails, actual emails from CTOs, systems engineers, data scientists. Some wanted to ask questions. Some wanted to license it. A few just wanted to say thanks. One guy from Sweden messaged me. "We've been chasing this exact issue for years. Whoever you are, thank you. This is elegant work." Elegant. No one had ever called my work that before. Back at the office, things carried on like nothing had happened. Greg still wore too much cologne. My team still grumbled about the same busted modules. Nobody suspected that the solution half the internet was talking about came from the guy 2 desks over, quietly eating peanut butter crackers and refactoring code at lunch. Then came the email that changed everything. It was from a senior editor at Stackwire, the kind of tech publication that made or broke reputations overnight. Said they were running a feature on Proxy Signal and wanted to do an interview. Said my idea was the kind of disruptive we haven't seen since cloud storage first hit. I stared at the screen for a long time. Disruptive. It felt weird. I hadn't set out to disrupt anything. I just wanted to fix something. Because it was broken. Because no one else was fixing it. But now people were calling it a movement. Forums were arguing about the implications of the model. Some were trying to replicate it. Others were poking holes in it, some of which were legit. That was fine. I welcomed it. At least it meant they were engaging. I told the Stackwire editor I'd do the interview, but only if I could do it anonymously. That threw her a bit, but she agreed. The article dropped the following Monday. The Invisible Fix: How Proxy Signal Quietly Rewired the Industry's Foundation. It went viral. By noon, 3 major enterprise software providers had announced they were exploring implementation pathways. At least 2 had probably already ripped off the core logic. I didn't care. This wasn't about ownership. It was about impact. That afternoon, I walked past Greg's office. He was on a call, waving his arms around like he was landing a plane. "Yeah, I've seen the Proxy Signal thing. Overhyped. Probably someone with too much time on their hands," he said, then laughed. I just kept walking. But inside, something had shifted. I used to think that ideas had to come with a spotlight to matter. But now I knew the truth, some of the biggest waves start from a ripple no one even notices. And I wasn't done. Not even close. It was wild watching your idea catch fire while you're still clocking in like nothing's changed. I'd come into the office every morning, not at the same receptionist, past the same vending machine that always ate my dollar, and sit at the same desk like I wasn't the center of a storm that was spinning faster by the hour. Except, I wasn't the center. Not publicly, anyway. Proxy Signal was. That name had taken on a life of its own, part mystery, part movement. People were calling me the ghost engineer, the janitor genius, the whisper behind the wall. I didn't ask for that, but I won't lie, it was addictive. Still, part of me was terrified it'd all vanish. That someone would dig deeper, poke a hole in the framework I'd missed, and the whole thing would collapse overnight. So I kept working. Tightening the code. Writing documentation. Building out support tools. All under the radar. All while trying to keep my day job from noticing how little I was sleeping. Then came the email. Subject: Legal inquiry regarding Proxy Signal IP. From Corporate Counsel, Signex Data Solutions. Signex was a huge player, think blue suits, city blocks worth of office space, an army of lawyers and consultants. Their message was polite, but the tone was clear. Who are you and how do we know you didn't steal something from us? I froze. Heart pounding. For all the buzz and praise, I hadn't thought about the fallout. I hadn't stolen anything, I'd built everything from scratch, even the test data, but I hadn't exactly insulated myself either. I was still using my work laptop for side development. Still coding during company hours when I could sneak it. I hadn't taken anything from them, but in the eyes of a lawyer, that was a gray area wide enough to sink a career. I had two options, disappear or come clean. I called in sick the next morning. First time in over a year. Spent the whole day pacing around my apartment rereading the email, trying to think. By 4 p.m. I knew what I had to do. I opened a blank doc and started writing. Not code. Not an email. A confession. I wrote out everything, how I found the flaw, the nights and weekends I spent building, how Greg ignored it, how I launched it anonymously, how it snowballed. I didn't make excuses. Didn't beg. Just laid it out plain and honest. Then I sent it. Not to HR. Not to Greg. To the CEO. Didn't even know if she'd read it. But she did. Her response came the next morning. 3 words. Let's talk. Today. I went in early, palms sweating, expecting security to be waiting at the front. Instead, I got a calendar invite and a quiet conference room on the 12th floor. She was already there. Jessica Lynn. Sharp eyes. Calm voice. The kind of person who made you feel like she was 10 moves ahead in a game you didn't know you were playing. She motioned for me to sit. No small talk. I read your note, she said. It's impressive. And troubling. I nodded, waiting for the hammer. Then she added, but mostly impressive. I blinked. Wait, what? You did something bold, she said. And it paid off. I don't love how you handled it, but I'd be stupid not to recognize the value. You've made us more relevant in 3 weeks than our whole product team has in the last year. I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight. She leaned in. So, you have a choice. You can walk or you can step into the light. We'll announce who you are. We'll back Proxy Signal officially. And you'll lead the division that builds it out. I didn't answer right away. My mind raced. I thought about staying quiet, staying safe. But that wasn't me anymore. That guy lived in the back row. I looked her in the eye and said, let's build it. The press release went live on a Tuesday. Simple headline, bold font. Signex acquires Proxy Signal, names Carter Vale as Director of Applied Systems Architecture. That was the first time most people in the company learned my name. Up until then, I was just that quiet guy in support. Yeah? I was the guy on the front page of TechSlate with a slightly blurry headshot and a quote I barely remembered giving. Innovation doesn't always need to be loud, it just needs to be true. They printed that on a banner in the main lobby. The same building where Greg worked. I passed him in the hallway 2 days later. He gave me this tight, corporate smile like he was chewing broken glass. Congrats, man, he said. Big win. Appreciate it, I replied, like we were just 2 dudes who hadn't ignored each other for 3 years. That moment said it all. The tide had shifted and some people were riding it. Others were drowning. Signex gave me a team, 6 engineers, 2 data architects, and a UX guy who wore Air Jordans and always carried a skateboard. They were sharp. Young, mostly. Fired up. We moved fast, breaking every rule I used to be the guy fixing. Jessica gave us 90 days to roll out a commercial-scale implementation of Proxy Signal. You're the front porch now, she told me. We've never been the cool house on the block. Let's change that. And man, we did. Within 3 weeks, we'd landed our first major client, an e-commerce titan that moved more data in an hour than we used to process in a month. Our patch didn't just hold, it flew. Reduced server strain by 42%. Cut their query processing time in half. They called it the smoothest data upgrade in corporate history. Everything was moving fast, almost too fast. With attention came the critics. Old-school engineers went on podcasts to dismiss Proxy Signal as a glorified data rearranger. One CIO blogged that we were playing with fire by deviating from decades of established architecture. A competing firm straight up accused us of plagiarism, no evidence, just loud headlines. Some of them were scared. Some were pissed. All of them were late. Meanwhile, the board started sniffing around. Not everyone upstairs liked me. I wasn't polished. I didn't play golf. I didn't say verticals and stakeholder impact. I wore hoodies and still brought my own coffee in a chipped thermos. And worst of all, I didn't need them to come up with the next big thing. I already had. That made me dangerous. At a quarterly review, one of the execs, Harper something, buttoned up, sharp blazer, eyes like a hawk, looked me dead in the face and asked, "What happens when your idea hits its ceiling? What else do you have?" I smiled and said, "Then I make another one." She didn't like that answer. Things got tense. Behind closed doors, I could feel the knives getting sharpened. Everyone loved Proxy Signal now, but if anything faltered even slightly, I'd be the first offering to the gods of quarterly losses. So I doubled down. Worked longer hours. Slept less. Missed calls from friends, ignored texts from my sister. I was in too deep to look back. And then one night, I got an email from someone I never expected. From Gregory Shaw. Subject, coffee? I stared at it for a long time. He was the guy who brushed me off, who told me not to waste cycles. Now he wanted to talk. Part of me wanted to delete it. Another part, the part that still remembered sitting at that corner desk, getting passed over for every idea I ever mumbled into existence, clicked reply. Sure. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. downstairs. Because here's the thing they never tell you about getting your shot. The people who ignored you before? They don't disappear. They circle back with smiles this time. Greg was already at the cafe when I walked in, suit jacket folded over the back of his chair, eyes darting between the door and his phone. He looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just seeing him differently now. "Carter," he said, standing up like we were old friends. "Thanks for meeting." "Sure," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Didn't peg you for a coffee guy?" "I'm not," he said. "It's about the conversation, right?" I raised an eyebrow. "What conversation are we having, exactly?" He gave a rehearsed little chuckle and leaned in. "Look, I'll be straight with you. You pulled off something huge. I mean, people are calling this a new standard. That's insane." I didn't reply. I just waited. He cleared his throat. "I was thinking maybe there's a place for me on your team. I know I haven't always, well, we didn't always see eye to eye, but I get it now. You've got vision." It hit me right then. He wasn't here to reconnect. He was here to survive. "Greg," I said, "do you even understand how the system works?" He hesitated, glanced down at his coffee like it might help him answer. "I've read the documentation now." "No, Greg. I mean really understand it. Not just what it does, but why it works." He stayed silent. "That's the problem," I said. "It's not just code. It's not a product. It's a change in thinking. And if you didn't get that before, you're not going to now." He leaned back, face tightening. "I made a mistake, all right? I didn't see it. That doesn't mean I can't contribute. You had your chance," I said, standing up, "and you told me not to waste time on a dead end. That's on you." I walked out before he could answer. The next week was chaos. A rival firm launched a copycat platform, Atelier, with a big marketing push and a shiny, over-designed interface. But under the hood, it was all bark and no bite. Their sorting algorithm was a clunky derivative of mine, and it buckled under high-volume stress tests. Still, the board panicked. They wanted a counter-campaign. Ads, press releases, something splashy. Jessica pulled me aside. "You're the story," she said. "The world wants to hear from the man behind Proxy Signal." I shook my head. "I don't want to be the story. I just want the work to stand." She gave me a look. "You can't hide anymore, Carter. You are the work." So I did it. I gave the talk. First time standing on a stage. Lights in my eyes. My voice booming through a mic. The room was packed. Journalists, investors, other engineers. I walked them through the logic, the flow, the heart of the idea. But I ended it the way I started. I didn't build this to make noise. I built it because something was broken. We fix things not because it's profitable. We fix them because it's right. That's the job. The applause was thunderous. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, watching the replay on my phone. I didn't feel proud. Not exactly. I felt tired. Like something had shifted permanently inside me. I wasn't the guy in the back row anymore. But I wasn't sure who I was now either. 2 days later, the call came. Jessica was out. Forced resignation. Political stuff, mostly. The board didn't like how much control she'd handed to someone like me. Someone without the pedigree, the polish. Someone who wasn't playing their game. A new interim CEO was named. Harper. Yep. The one who asked me what I do when I hit my ceiling. She called a meeting that Friday. Everyone was there. Suits. Advisors. All eyes on me. She smiled, cool and rehearsed. Carter, your work has been exceptional. But moving forward, we'll be reintegrating your team into our broader enterprise architecture initiatives. We're bringing Proxy Signal in-house. Took me a second to understand what she meant. They were taking it. My project. My vision. My name. Folded into the same bloated system I'd built it to replace. I stood there, stunned, as the meeting rolled on without me, like I was already gone. That night, I sat at my desk long after everyone had left. The office dark, my hands hovering over the keyboard, frozen. I had a choice. I could let them take it, or I could burn the whole damn thing down and build again. From the outside this time. I didn't sleep that night, just sat there in the glow of my monitor, staring at lines of code I knew better than my own handwriting. They were going to gut Proxy Signal, strip it of its soul, plug it into their legacy systems, water it down with a dozen committees, slap a corporate sticker on it and call it innovation. It wasn't about control. It was about ownership. They didn't understand it, but they wanted to claim it. And I couldn't let that happen. I opened my terminal, accessed the build. Every system I designed, every tool, every line of logic was under my admin keys. Harper and her board didn't even realize how much control they'd handed me when they pushed Jessica out. They thought they were taking it. But Proxy Signal wasn't just code. It was mine. My signature was in every loop, every condition, every comment. If they wanted a neutered version, they could build it themselves. I spent the next 8 hours doing what I do best. Cleaning up messes. I encrypted the original core. Locked the core library behind a checksum wall they'd never crack without my key. I wrote a note in the back end, in plain sight. Integrity is the foundation of everything. If you compromise that, you don't deserve what was built on it. Then I walked out. Resigned the next morning. Sent an email with 3 sentences. Effective immediately. You're welcome to continue without me. But you'll be building a copy, not the real thing. I left my badge on the desk. They were stunned, of course. Emails flew. Legal buzzed. But the funny thing about foundational code is, if you don't understand it, you can't rebuild it. Not really. And they didn't. 2 days later, I published everything. Open-sourced Proxy Signal under a Creative Commons license. Released the documentation, the full architecture, every line of clean, annotated code. Packaged it with the same sincerity I'd built it with. No paywall. No DRM. No gatekeeping. I called it Signal Root. And I signed it this time. Carter Vale. I wrote a statement to go with it. Just a few words. This was never about profit. It was about fixing what's broken and reminding the world that progress doesn't belong to corporations. It belongs to people. Build better. Share freely. Stay honest. Within 48 hours, it had been forked 1,000 times. An independent developer in Berlin optimized it for low-bandwidth environments. A nonprofit in Kenya adapted it for medical record sorting. A small startup in Ohio used it to streamline their entire logistics chain. Signal Root was alive in the wild now. And no one could own it. No one could kill it. Harper? Her in-house version sputtered and died within a quarter. Their investors pulled out. The board scrambled. I didn't watch. I didn't care. That chapter was closed. I took a road trip after that. Just me, a duffel bag, and the open road. Saw the plains turn into mountains. Watched the sun rise over empty highways. Thought a lot about how close I'd come to letting it all be buried under someone else's name. In some tiny town in Utah, I met a kid at a gas station, maybe 17, hacking on a Chromebook outside a diner. We got to talking. He said he was learning back-end development. Told me he just started using some open-source system called Signal Root. Said it was awesome. Fast. Simple. Different. He didn't know who I was. I smiled and said, yeah, I've heard good things. He grinned. Whoever made it, guy's a genius. I laughed, nodded, and left it at that. Because the point was never for them to know my name. The point was for the work to speak for itself. And it was. Loud and clear.